are live. Let's make sure everything's coming through right. Let's jump back to the actual stuff. Where are we? Here's a reference. Okay, yeah. Seems like everything's coming across. Good. Let's close those down. Okay, cool. So welcome everybody. Feel free to let me know you can see me and hear me okay. We should be looking at the blueprint docs and the issues on GitHub, the open issues. So let me know you can see all that okay. So what I want to do today is basically go through, I think this got fixed. Yeah, so I just want to go in to the bugs. There's a couple bugs that have come across. A few of these are things I kind of knew about, and some other ones are a bit of wishful thinking in the docs. So I finished the docs over the weekend. Spent a lot of time writing these up. You know, Laravel has such a rich documentation habit within the community, so I really just wanted to keep the bar high with that. So I really tried to write um, this documentation much like the Laravel documentation. You can read it kind of start to finish. Now, of course, it's not at the document or the level of documentation Laravel has. Of course, you know, over time I'll continue to tweak this. So, but yeah, definitely give it a look, give it a read through, kind of top to bottom as you're learning. You know, they're not too long of sections. And let me know, do I need more code samples? What questions did you still have? You know, hit me up on Twitter, or better yet, go to the contributing part and open an issue in the Blueprint documentation or even the regular Blueprint project, and I'll take a look at it. So anyway, the point of that is one of the very first things in all this was update. And so I wrote, again, the documentation with some wishful thinking in a few sections. In fairness, some of the stuff I thought was already in Blueprint because I had originally intended to do it that way. So I'm getting some people that are saying, "Oh, hey, I tried to do, update the way you said in the docs, and it doesn't work." And they're right, it doesn't work because this is a bit of a new piece. This was kind of that wishful thinking statement. So somebody opened a bug for this, and that's what I want to resolve. So we'll just kind of start using this live stream as motivation to kind of tackle these. And in fairness, I've had some excellent pull requests come across from the community. Some other bugs that have already been fixed. This timestamp one was a really nice one the other day. Some imports had the incorrect casing. So all that was fixed the other day. So I really appreciate some of the users, and we can see some repeat, contributors to the project here. So I really, really appreciate all of the community's help in kind of keeping the buzz going and getting this all tweaked and bug-free. But ultimately, the responsibility falls on me. So let's start reviewing some of these. So let's go with the update statement first. And according to the documentation, I basically said that you can generate an update statement, an eloquent update statement, as we know. And I even go so far as to say Blueprint will use the preceding values, or the values from the preceding validate statement. So for example, this is kind of nice. Update and validate are right next to each other. So if you have validate and then all this, and then you say update post, it would actually set those additional fields in the update bit there. So that's kind of interesting that I said it would do that because that's pretty fancy. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll get that far today, but let's at least make the update post, generic statement. So again, feel free to message me in the chat. But let's first of all let's make sure I have the latest. So let's do git pull origin. Yeah, I did not have the latest. And let's go ahead and run the test just to make sure everything's good. It is good. Great, look at all those tests. Beautiful. That's a really big thing, actually, if you're going to open a PR, is like I really want to see that whatever you added has tests. If you're not that great at writing tests or not familiar with it, that's okay. Still open the PR, but say in one of the comments, hey, I don't have a test for this. Here's kind of the example draft, and here's kind of obviously what I expect would be the output. And I'm glad to wire it up for you, but definitely appreciate any additional work you can add or contribute to Blueprint there. So let's do this. Let's do update statement. So we know everything's clean and everything's the latest. So I'm going to check out a different branch for this update statement, and let's go take a look. Now, I took a quick look actually before I started the video. I have the concept of an eloquent statement already, and this eloquent statement actually has a couple different operations. And if we scroll down and just kind of look at the output, save, find, and delete are all built in to this eloquent statement. So I think the easiest thing to do would be to drive it out by using this eloquent statement. I don't need to make a new special update statement class or anything like that. Let's just piggyback what's here. Again, for the purposes of the live stream and just to be pretty quick, I'm really just going to support kind of this very basic syntax at first. I'm not going to worry too much about, again, this kind of wishful thinking part. There's other things I'd like to actually leverage the validate statement anyways, so I think what I'll do is open a separate issue to be smarter about that. If one's not already there, I think one's already there to be fair. So we'll check that out in a minute, but let's at least support proper code generation if you were to write update model name or update a set of fields for you here in Blueprint. So let's drive it out with some tests, right? So just so we're all on the same page, what I want to support is basically update and then some kind of model or model, for example. So it could be lowercase or uppercase. And then let's go ahead and support some kind of like update, name, comma, email, comma, whatever, right? Whatever column. I think if we support those two formats, we're going to really not only allow what I think, the basics of what needs to be there in line with the documentation. So for example, let's just say user and to kind of line these up. So name, email, and age, whatever, fine. Okay, so this would line up with the documentation a little bit better, and then what would be nice is that if we support this syntax, it would be very easy then to support validate, because basically what we would do is we would just look up the abstract syntax tree to see if you have a validate statement, and if so, if we go back to the docs, if so, validate's written in that format already, so then we would just steal that and then basically paste it into the update spot. So it would just be a convenience, effectively, the whole validate bit. So if we support these two today, which I think we could write the test for this and drive this out pretty quickly, then we've paved the road for validate, and I'll open a separate issue to say, hey, it'd be nice if the update statement, when you just passed in model, would go and see if there's a previous validate statement, and if so, use those fields here. Again, Blueprint's all about convenience, developer speed, rapid code generation. No reason to type all that stuff when Blueprint could infer it from other statements. Okay, so let's go ahead and drive this out. Blueprint generates code. Let's see. So we'll probably want two different tests here. So we would want one for this. So output generates code for update using model. Let's do that. And then we'll say output generates code for update using column list. How about that? And that's going to be this. Okay, so we're starting kind of at the really, really low level unit test here, and I just want to get the ball rolling, and then we'll work our way back up to the Lexer. So we're actually starting kind of inside out in this case, a little bit opposite of the way you might TDD, which would be outside in. But I think it's easy to explain kind of what the stuff looks like here, so that's why I kind of want it to work this way. So you have a reference, and in this case, we don't really have any additional data, so kind of the generic output we would expect would really just be this, right? It would really just be post update, and then since we don't know any fields, you didn't pass any column lists, and we don't yet support the validate statement, it's hard to know, what to do here. So let's just generate that right now. Again, not the most ideal scenario, but it is generating code. And just for a little more clarity here, we're not going to pass in any kind of controller prefix. And it's kind of weird that I pass in whatever there. I just want to pass in null here and see what happens. So we'll kind of drive it out that way. So let's run our tests again. Vendor bin PHP unit, and we have an exception. Output must be of type string null given. Okay, so it looks like we do need to pass in a string, which is kind of weird. I'll come back to that later. Okay, good. So we have a failing test. Output generates code for model. Failed doing that, right? Okay, so let's narrow down our tests by just testing this stuff. Oops, I meant to pass that in. There we go, a little faster. Okay, cool. So we have this failure, so let's make this pass. Okay, so it seems like I'm just having a little loop down here of if it's update, do this. So let's just kind of copy that and let's call it update. And I care nothing about the context. So let's just do the simplest thing possible, which would just be take the camel case of the model that's passed in, or the model that it infers, and basically change this to update, right? And it takes an array, I think. And we pass. It's that simple. Let's go double check the documentation though for Laravel update. Eloquent. I want to see. I just want to see. I think update takes some additional. So you can take a whole thing on it, of course. I think it's kind of uncommon to do update on a straight model the way we're doing it. I feel like most people would write save. I don't know. You can tell me in the comments if you agree with that or not. That might have been why I didn't build update to begin with. Updates can also be performed against any number. It's interesting because you don't see like a flight arrow update in the docs. So this is kind of an uncommon. It's kind of an uncommon bit of syntax. Like I just don't know how common it is to write Laravel this way. Part of me thinks what would be cooler, I'm just kind of spitballing here for a second, but part of me thinks what would be cooler is actually, instead of update generating an update statement, what would be pretty cool is if you could say something like update post, and then instead this would do something more like, post. It would do post arrow, whatever name equals, name, and it would do that a couple times and then ultimately do post save. That would be really cool in my opinion. I don't know. Again, tell me what you think in the comments. But I think it would be pretty darn cool is, this update with validate would actually just list them out instead of calling an update with an array of options to set. Like this would actually be smart enough. Blueprint would actually be smart enough to do something, generate code, like the whole block sequence that we see in the docs here. Like this, basically. That would be pretty sweet. I think. I don't know. Again, tell me what you think. So yeah, anyway, I think we'll build this out kind of the way I said today, but again, this could be an enhancement of version 2, something where update maybe generated code like this underneath certain scenarios. I think there's still value in supporting an update statement explicitly, but maybe that scenario when you use a blueprint definition of like validate, name, title, whatever, and then, you have some more statements, and then you have this update, post. This scenario, this combination is actually where you would end up getting that. I don't know. Again, very specific thing. So again, I might just save the validate and this idea for a different day down the road. Uh, I like update more. Yeah, let's see what y'all are saying. Prefer update over save. So yeah, it seems like there's a need to do, for whatever reason, I'm preferring having each field assigned on its own line and then saved at the end. Yeah, I think I think it's probably mixed the way in which people do it. So let's offer a update statement explicitly, like we originally talked about. But I do think there's an opportunity, again, maybe under the scenario of validate and update. In that scenario, it does it more like the docs. Maybe it does it more line by line, what you're changing, assigns the request data, calls update, or at the least generates, I don't know, maybe generates something like something more shorthand, like a post update and then request um, only, and then name, title, something like that. That could be cool. So again, I think there's some opportunities. Sorry for the tangent, but it's fun to think about all these different cool things Blueprint could do. So anyway, appreciate the feedback. Keep it coming. But anyways, I think we're good here. Let's move on to the next one. So output generates code for update using column list. So when we pass in update, and reference is kind of an odd name here, but we're going to keep it. So we're going to want to say something like the reference would be name, title, um, age or whatever we said like that. And this would be, let's change this to something else. Let's change this to user, and it would be user arrow update. And then this gets a little fancy, but this is when I don't like these assert equals. But it would basically be, does it know how to indent? It doesn't necessarily know indentation levels yet. That's a bit ugly. Okay. I don't like this, but for now, I'm going to put this all on one line. So let's do name. Whoops. Let's close that down so we get some more room. Let's do name, and then title is title, and then age is age. And again, this is why I'm leaning more towards the other syntax, but again, let's go ahead and support it. May as well. Again, we don't care about the context. We kind of care about the controller prefix in this scenario, being user. Otherwise, you kind of have to do something like user dot. That's a bit ugly. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a controller prefix of user here and kind of go from there. I'm just wondering, do we need to support a very different syntax where it's like user colon and then all the things on user that you want to do? Crap. So much fluctuation with these statements. Let's support what I have first. Let's just support this today, and we'll kind of see how people use it. So let's run this, and wow, we definitely get some oddities there. And what's interesting here is that because the reference is set, reference is already being used in some very interesting ways. So I think what I want to do instead is maybe say something like columns. I want to pass in columns instead. Let's do that. And that's why I wanted to start at the lowest level, is the reference here would maybe be null, and instead you're going to get a set of columns. And by starting at this lowest level, it kind of guides me on what I need the lexer to look like, the parser. So the parser is going to have to parse out these strings. I don't want to pass them raw down and overuse what's already there. So let's update this. So this will be title. So this is going to get an array, and now we should get an error because it doesn't take a null there. So how am I using that up here? Find doesn't really take, it doesn't really accept a null right now. All right, let's do that. The other thing is I could make this mixed, but I kind of don't like that. So let's call this an array. What do we say? Columns equals an empty array. And let's go ahead and make this a field. All right. Let's kind of see what that does. Return value of blueprint eloquent statement reference must be of type string null returned. Okay, that's fine. Let's just kind of tweak this all the way down and see where we get. Okay, great. So we're past those errors now. We've made reference nullable. And now we're getting user update, which is good. Now we just need to properly generate that array. So I heard some comments come across. Let's see what's happening. User maybe reference should be user. Yeah, yes, that's true. So what you're saying is this should be user. I think what I'm not communicating it very well in the test, to be fairness, but what I'm trying to communicate here is that if you pass in this particular shorthand, so we have to remember what the statement's going to look like. And this will, excuse me, this will be more clear in the lexer. But if I'm passing in this, then technically speaking, when the eloquent statement's generated, we don't really know what the context is. We don't really know what the model reference is. We just got a field of columns. And instead, we're going to infer that from the controller prefix, the context of the controller that we're within. So yeah, it's a little hard to see again because we're at the lowest level, but I want to be able to support a very generic version of update here where you don't have to say something like user, .title, .name the whole time. You can kind of infer from the surrounding context. Again, Blueprint's about speed. Now those contexts might not always line up, in which case I might need to support something like this, where you say update user, and then all these fields, and then in that case, this would get passed in with user. So, but I want to support both, and we'll drive that out from the actual lexer. So for now, let's get this built based on this, which should not be too bad. So what we can do instead is, let's just do something real quick and dirty here. Let's do something like this. So let's say that columns is going to equal that, and then if it's not empty, this columns, again, I'm going to refactor all this later, but let's get the test passing first. So here I would say something like ... columns, and now I'm going to overwrite columns. I'm just kind of curious. This is going to be pretty gross, but watch this. Let's see what happens. Let's var export, and I think var export you have to return. Return parameter is used, evaluates to true, otherwise this function will return null. Yeah, if set to true, var export will return the variable. That's what we want. So we need to say true. Oh wow, I blew something up. Oh, helps when you have your proper syntax. Okay, so that's an empty array. Oh, that's not what I thought. Var export. Var export. Doesn't compact return what we want it to? Oh. I thought compact would give me a Can't you pass in mixed? Yeah, you can pass in mixed. Or an array of variable names. Yeah. I was really hoping compact would do what I wanted. Again, this was never going to be 100%, but I'm curious now just what this outputs. Let's just say null. Outputs an empty array. I passed in columns. What's going on here? I'm passing in columns. Come on. What's going on? Okay, array columns comes in. Columns is that. We get inside here. It's clearly columns is not empty. How come when I call compact on this columns it is empty? It's very strange. Maybe compact just isn't doing what I wanted it to do. Yeah, there's definitely crap in columns. Can I do like array values? This is getting ugly, but I'm just curious now. Sorry. 30 seconds. Okay, whatever. All right, so instead of var export, we need to output, we need to like pretty print the output of these variables, all these variables that we have. So what we could do, I think I've written this code before, but whatever. We'll just do something like, I can't implode it. I could array map it and then implode it. So let's do implode on the glue space and then array map this columns. It's probably faster with a collection, but oh, it takes callbacks first. So we'll do function column and not that. There we go. And this will basically return the column, whoops, the actual column. Let's do an sprintf. I think that's going to be easier. Sprintf on column, whoops. Well, shit. It is not as clean as I thought it was going to be. No, that's fine. That's fine. Let's do the double quotes. My bad. Okay, sorry. Let's do %s arrow %s and whoops, column. All right, let's see what that looks like. Pretty close, just not in an overall array wrapping. So what's really interesting is I can really just do this, and columns is nothing to start with. There we go. What is it not like? Oh, it needs to be $sign. That's why I didn't like the double quotes. I knew I had to do a $sign in there somewhere. Okay, so not super pretty, but you know, it'll work, and it supports the update statement, and you can pass in column names, and it'll actually infer the context from the controller. So definitely better than it was, because it didn't exist before, and now you can actually say update, but currently you might have to do just a little bit of longhand work yourself by passing in a comma-separated list of the, columns that you want to update. Everything else can be inferred automatically. So I think that's fine as far as the code generation aspect of it. I think now let's go back to the lexer, and then that should be good enough to start from here. So we have a statement lexer. And what I want to do with the statement lexer is basically, this thing's pretty big because it lexes all of the different statements. So let's just find the save bit here. Eloquent tokens provided. See, that's interesting. I actually do have an update here. That's really funny. I did support update in the lexer, but it never had code generation. Okay, so let's see where this is used. So this actually works, and it should output the reference. Great. Okay, so we just need an additional one now to make sure that the eloquent statement lexer will honor those columns when you pass in a comma-separated list. So let's do that. So let's just copy this, because we already have the foothold, and let's kill that eloquent statements, and let's say it returns an update eloquent statement with columns. All right, and we're not going to pass anything else because we're not using a data provider. And tokens, what's tokens here? What do I actually use this for? Analyze tokens. Okay, that's fine. So the tokens here would be update, and then based on what we had a minute ago, name, title, and what do we say? Age, doesn't really matter. And those could probably be kind of in any format, but the point here is that it's going to take those out. So we're going to analyze those. We should get that. We should assert that it's update. Right now, that's an empty array on reference, so that's kind of ugly in fairness. And columns should be, what do we expect here? Name, title, and age. And columns is not actually going to exist. So let's just jump ahead a little bit and go ahead and make that. We can do that with a getter, just on columns. I hate that it puts it at the top. And we'll call this columns. And we don't need that because we have the PHP 7 return type. And then down here, let's just go ahead and dog food that with columns and columns. All right, cool. Where am I? There we are. Let's run everything here, and we should get some exceptions, which we do. So name, title, age, it returns that, so that's good. And then we actually should have, yeah, we actually have some issues now. You know what's really funny about this is that, okay, so I'm actually getting an error now that the lexer is supporting an update statement in the, that's kind of funny. Yeah, I wonder what this was before. That must have just been save. Maybe the default was save. Yeah, we'll go take a look at that. Anyway, let's go find out. Okay, so we want not to mess with that anymore. Let's mess with the lexer. Let's bring this up side by side. And so save, update, delete, and find all just kind of go here. So now we really just want to break out this update statement case to be something a little bit different. Whoops. I think I broke something. Oh, no, I just made a new line break. My bad. All right, let's take out update, and let's remove it from there. So it should do the same thing here. Shouldn't introduce any additional errors. And let's focus our test to be just the lexer for now, and then we'll go back and figure out why these other ones were failing. So it's getting name, title, age in the reference, and it should not. And that's because we need to do a little more fanciness here. So it can't just blindly take the second side of the statement anymore. It actually is going to need to break that out. So what we need to do is, I think there's some other statements that break this up. We just make these analyze statements. So I'm just going to follow suit here. And let's just make an analyze, just to be symmetrical, let's just do an analyze update. And I'm going to steal that, and let's go make this method. Okay, so we know what the command is automatically. It's just update, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. So really what we can do is we can say if the statement portion, or the value of the statement, contains a comma of any kind, because you can't have a comma in a model reference name. So we know that's a pretty safe check. So we can just say contains if statement contains a comma of any kind, or doesn't contain a comma of any kind, then we know we can just give you back a new eloquent statement for what we sent you. So let's go ahead and run this, and we should still see kind of the same issue here. We just get null now because we're not returning anything. So instead, now we would know that we need to parse the second portion with the columns. Whoops. And now that we have this test running right, let's just go ahead and close this to get some more real estate. And instead, we'll say columns. And what we can do is we can explode this on comma, which I think, yeah, I think we split the with statement. Yeah, I'm just trying to see. Here we split on, what do we do here? I know I had some helper methods here where we split things on the with, empty with, object. Yeah, see, I don't do it that way. Yeah, it's really just this. Let's just all inline it right now. So basically columns is going to equal a preg split on the statement where you have any kind of spacing around them. So we can just say columns, and let's see if we're passing. We are not. Failed asserting that null is identical to blank. Statement lexer 279. Statement lexer test 279. So let's bring up this statement lexer test 279. Oh, of course. It's not blank. That was our initial hackish way to do it, but now we actually support nulls. There we are green. Okay, so I think we're pretty close for update statement being done here. So the issue now is that update, the actual update in an API generated resource uses an update statement. I'm curious what this was before. So I want to go and take a look at this controller generator test to see how I introduced an error here. And what is that? Line 100? Okay, so looks like this uses what? This uses the custom models namespace blueprint file. Okay, resource API. So this is a shorthand that we automatically generate all the resourceful controller actions for API. So I know that that happens in the controller lexer. So let's go see what these generated resource statements are. And there it is. It does update, which is actually good in my opinion. But the interesting thing is this was never outputting any code, I don't think. And now it is because we properly fixed the bug. So let's go take a look at this file, the expected fixture, and see what the deal is here. Yeah, see, update just used to return the tag resource, and that's clearly incorrect. So really what should be happening now is tag should be getting update, and right now just blank, but that's where this validation is going to come in and save the day here in a little bit. So let's run this. Okay, down to one error, and same concept, just in a different file now. So let's find that. Where is that other one? Certificate type. So that is here. And we have update, and now this should be certificate arrow update attributes close. Nope, doesn't like that either. Certificate type. Certificate type. It should be here too, but I picked the wrong issue. Let's find this. Where is this? Pascal case. Why do we have so many names for things? I think some contributors did this I'll probably want to clean this up. I am in the right spot. Certificate controller. What's going on here? Nope, nope. I must have been in a different file. Okay. Certificate type. That should probably just all be done with a data provider. I feel like that's a little confusing. Okay, we're green now. All right, I think this is good enough. Let's go ahead and do git add-p and just kind of review our work. So before we did support an update statement, but it generated no code because the output, the actual command output or the statement outputter did nothing for update. So it lexed it the way we wanted, or half of the way we wanted, but never really finished anything. And what's interesting about that is that's kind of a really good example of the limitations of unit testing. We see actually the integration test all the way down didn't cover everything either. So the combination of the two types of tests actually gave us the most coverage, right? We even saw that all of our tests were passing before, but the feature was incomplete. And we had integration tests, actually. They were just written incorrectly. So again, just kind of the power of kind of having both, but also how those integration tests could have caught this, but if you write it kind of after the fact, like the contributors did, again, nothing wrong with that, you can still miss stuff. So that's why I like having some unit tests at these really low level, because it allows me to test some of the nuances between without having to write like 100 example controller files for all the variations of code that people can write within controller actions, all the different statements and the ways they could write statements. So I could test the nuance of the statement really low level, and then have an integration test to make sure that it's there. So I think we're back on track here, but just wanted to point that out, having the power of both. Okay, so here's our private analyze update, symmetrical with everything else. Again, I might come back and figure out a way to share this since a lot of other code does it, but we just wanted to hack on for now. We introduced array columns. It's a optional field, so it just defaults to nothing, not going to hurt anything for any of the other commands. And we made reference nullable, and then added the missing operation code for that. Cool. And then finally, what is this? Oh, the statement lexer. Of course, we added a very specific test because we saw that update was working already when you pass in a single model reference, but we want to make sure it works also when you pass in that comma separated bit. And then we updated the eloquent statement outputter. That makes sense. And then, of course, we have to create our integration tests to appropriately generate, right now, a blank update statement. Okay, cool. So let's do git commit -m support base or generate basic code for eloquent update statements. How long is that? Git commit -amend. I'm kind of a stickler for that. We are, oh, I can't see because my thing, we are at exactly 50 characters. All right, cool. Git push origin head. All right. Who's still out there? We still got a few people out there. What time is it? That's fine. We'll keep going. Good. Okay, let me know. Let's do this. Just to kind of liven things up, let's go ahead and why don't you all tell me which one you'd like to see next. So we have, because I probably have time for one more. I like to keep these right about an hour. We can work on problem with generating factory when a model has a relationship. Honestly, I don't think this is a real bug, so that might not take us that long anyway. So we could kind of prove that out. And then this one's kind of cool, infer foreign reference from ID modifiers. And then again, I don't even think, this is pretty old. This is like back in March. So I don't even think this is a real bug anyway, but I want to squash all these either way. So, but if anyone has an opinion on which one they'd like to see, whether they want to see the relationship thing or the ID shorthand, cast your votes for a second while I go ahead and open this up. While the update model syntax was lexed, it was not generating the code. It was not outputting the generated code. Send those votes across, people. Come on. All right, this closes. What was that? Crap. This was blueprint. Missing update statement bugs. So this is 185. So this closes 185. Let me just say, I'd still like to support pairing this with a validate statement for additional developer convenience. But this resolves the initial bug for now. Okay. But I'll open a separate issue for that as this resolves the initial bug. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and create the pull request into master, and good, we got one down. That should get us going on that. Okay, what do we vote on? Foreign, start with the infer foreign. I really like your live streams. Thank you. Okay, cool. Let's do the infer foreign then. Thank you all for voting. Okay, so this one's underway. Let's go check this out. Infer foreign. So I worked on the foreign key constraints before. What would really be nice, though, is to make sure that I can infer the appropriate foreign key relationships when something like this is done. So, for example, we have a model. It's a team model. There's the person that's on the team, the member of the team, but then there's also an owner, maybe of the team, the person who created it, or the team leader, or whatever you want to call it. So we can kind of think of how this should not only generate a belongs to user, but it should also have an owner relationship that also belongs to user. Now, I do think all that is linked up correctly. What's not linked up correctly, and to the point of this issue, is that the use constraints is not getting output the way we would expect. So I think currently it would incorrectly reference the owner's bit. Now, again, there have been some PRs, for example, for this, not only the one I created, but someone else has also. So this might have got fixed and somehow just wasn't marked as closed, and I just kind of missed that maintenance. So let's go write a test for this and see if it works. So, or you know what, better yet, let's just go use Blueprint. Let's go back to like confident Laravel, and let's check out master. Well, no, I think demo is fine. Let's go install Blueprint real fast and like see if this all works. So let's go here, let's go here, let's go there, and while that's installing, let's go to the configuration, and we're gonna publish the Blueprint configuration. Come on, Blueprint. Composer, install. So yeah, this is a nice way to test it. We'll actually take that bit, turn on the constraint, see if it even works. If it does, we'll just straight up close the issue. If it doesn't, then we know we have a proper fixture to go start driving our tests. And this side will drive our tests from the outside in. We'll start with the very top layer fixture, and we'll kind of get it working all the way down. Oh, don't be a jerk. Ignore platform Rex. That's probably not the best thing to do, but that's okay. Let's just get this going. And while it's doing that, I could probably go ahead and paste in. There we go. That might take a second. Sorry, folks. Probably need a drink anyway. All right, so that's too slow for me. Let's go to workspace, confident Laravel, and let's do, where'd it go? Nope, we already did that one. This is what I want. Let's do a pb paste, draft.yaml. So there's our draft YAML file. There's everything we need there, finally caught up. Let's close that, and we want this artisan thing because we are going to turn on And let's just bring up Atom just for simplicity so I don't have to mess with PHP Storm. Verifying Atom, what the hell? Okay, so if we cat our draft file, we have everything we need. And let's go ahead, don't save that. Let's go check out our config blueprint, and what we talked about was that if we turn this to true, we should maybe not get the migrations we expect. So let's run vendor bin blueprint, or wait, no, not vendor bin, sorry. PHP artisan blueprint. I was running the tests. Build. Okay, it made a database, the team, and the factory. So let's go see how all this looks, right? So first of all, let's check out the team. Okay, so we have fillable, user, and owner. We have the IDs, all that's nice. We have the belongs to. So we see, just like I expected, the model, regardless of what we said, is perfecto. So that is not the issue. Model is good. Let's check the factory for giggles, because I do think that might also be an issue. But actually the models, or sorry, the factory should be fine too. Yes, it is. Okay, so the model and the factory are fine. So out of the box, this is not an issue with the syntax or regular generation. Again, this is a very specific issue with the constraints. So let's open up the migrations and see if that's true. I believe it is true, yes. The expectation here is that this should probably be constrained to user. This should probably say user right here is what I would expect. Or more specifically, users right there, because it's a table constraint. So this is actually an introduced thing in Laravel 7. You know what? Let's just go look at it. Let's bring up PHP Storm for some auto completion. All right, let's look at teams. So let me demonstrate. Oh, come on. I think I heard a comment while we're waiting on that. Hey, how's it going? Is it, what is that? Is I saying it right? Krishan? Is that right? Hopefully. Hey, Krishan. Okay, let's go back to PHP Storm. And this is a new thing actually recently added. It attempts to infer the name if you don't pass in the table based on whatever we say. So in this case, it's going to take the name of the field and then pull anything before the ID at the very end, right? And I think, you know what? I think this actually has a bug in it. We'll come back to that. I think that's a bug. But anyways, I would need to pass in users here because otherwise it's going to assume owner right there is what's being constrained on. So the way that that worked, Laravel, you can do this shorthand when you're following conventions, but when you kind of have this additional relationship that's maybe more human named or something, it would have assumed the plural of owner, which is owners, owners and ID. So hopefully this emphasizes the problem that we have. We don't need to necessarily specify that second column, but we do need to specify users here because again, it's going to default to owners in its current state. So this is a legit bug. Let's go back to Blueprint and get this fixed. I heard some more comments come across. Let me check them. Yes, I said it right. Cool, good. I like to say names right. I feel bad when I don't. Okay, so I wonder if we already have, let me just check the fixtures to see if we already have some kind of definition, that maybe would demonstrate like a different key name. Let's look at relationships. Here we go. Perfect. Perfect. We have post ID and then we have author ID, which references user for some reason, right? So this is a nice analogous. It's not exactly the one we were just using, but it solves the same problem. We have this. So what I want to do is I want to use this fixture to write a test for the foreign key constraints, and then we'll drive it out from there. So this fixture already exists under relationships. And let's go, this would be the migration generator test. And somewhere in here we have a use constraints true. Yes, we do. So output also creates constraints for pivot table migration. Output also creates constraints for pivot table migration Laravel 6. Okay, cool. So this isn't a pivot table yet, although it is going to create different constraints. So let's do this. Let's just copy this, and let's bring this up. Let's just start with Laravel 7 because that's our default. Let's get some more real estate here, and let's say output, not also. Let's say output creates constraints. I don't like the also. Also confuses me. Output uses proper data type for ID columns. Okay, let's start it up here so we're not within that pivot table bit of stuff. That's kind of hard to see. Let me show you what I was talking about. There's just a lot of like pivot table stuff like in a row down here. So like pivot table, pivot table, pivot table, pivot table. So we're gonna start kind of outside that block. So just a tiny bit of organization there that I cared about. Okay, so output creates constraints for what do we want to call this? For unconventional, I think I've been using that terminology, unconventional ID or foreign reference. I don't know. Unconventional foreign name reference. Foreign reference. I like that. Unconventional foreign reference. That's fine. Okay, so we're going to turn on constraints, and the stub we want to use is going to be relationships. Relationships, and we only have one thing being generated. That's going to be this, and this will be create, what was that called? Comment. So comments table. And we shouldn't have to really mess with most of this other stuff, I don't think. But let's take a double look. We don't need the belongs to many key constraints. We shouldn't need that. We don't put two things out. We're just going to put one thing out. So this is going to be relationships, constraints. Yeah, because we turned on constraints. And then we pull in the relationships itself, and then we only have the model migration that we expect. Okay, so let's just review this test one more time. Since I'm a little more familiar with it, I went kind of quick. We basically turned on constraints in our configuration for the purposes of testing. We would expect that, of course, we're going to read in the migration stub. We're going to freeze carbon time because the migrations use a timestamp, which will then get replaced to create our time-stamped file name, which we expect to be returned by Blueprint. Every generator is responsible for telling me or telling the Blueprint what it created. So that's just a little array here. We're going to expect that it outputs a file that's going to match a fixture, which we need to go create here in a second. And then, of course, we're going to parse the Blueprint definition of that relationships. And then we're going to go ahead and analyze it, run it, and everything. So this is a very high-level integration test. This is effectively doing what we did on the command line just a minute ago, but it's automatically going to compare these files together. So it's going to take the relationships draft file input, and it's going to expect while constraining and controlling in isolation all the underlying file manipulation and stubs and all that to ultimately give us an expected fixture out. So let's go write that expected fixture. And we're going to put it in migrations. And we called this relationships, but I'm just going to copy this one and call it constraints. And what we should expect here now is foreign ID. And then this is going to be constrained. And the cascade on delete. And then basically the same thing for author ID. But ideally, this would say users, right? And just kind of bringing up that relationships again. There we go. It should reference the user table users table following Laravel's conventions. It can no longer infer that from the column name itself, as constrained does by default. Now in Laravel 7, the latest version of Laravel 7, it did not do that in Laravel 7.0. I think it was, I want to say 7.8, but anyways, we're on 7.10 now, so if you get the latest version, you get these cool shorthands. Okay, so let's run our tests. Not in Confident Laravel. Let's go back to, ooh, we need to get to another branch. Git checkout -b. This is foreign ID reference, and I want to branch that off master. I don't want to branch off my update stuff. So let me just demonstrate what I did there. Notice that the update statement actually had commits on it. Since we haven't merged that yet, we don't want to make this PR dependent upon that PR. Weird chain of events. So by passing that second argument there to checkout, I can tell it what branch to branch from. So notice that foreign ID reference is now inline and branched directly off master. So just a little git shorthand there. Okay, cool. Let's get back to it. Vendor bin PHP unit, run this. We expect a failure, and there it is. As expected, and as we saw with Confident Laravel, we have just the generic constrained there. So let's go fix this up. Okay, I'm not exactly sure where that happens, obviously in the migration generator, but let's go take a peek. There it is, migration generator, just like we thought. So we have a good failing test here. I'm going to back off that for a second. This is probably exactly where we need to be, but I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know what we have here, and my guess is that build foreign key no longer has enough information on, it probably just needs to get the whole object, not just the name anymore. Yeah, see, foreign modifier comes, yeah, this is a very, very dense method. I gotta be honest. I gotta step back for just a second. Honestly, I would have never supported foreign keys as much as I am now. So I want to thank, again, the community for kind of driving this out, but I don't really do foreign key constraints at the database level. And I have to be honest, the amount of time I spent getting this method to work, even with the user contributions, as we saw with the update statement just a minute ago, there's so many variations of the ways in which you can write this foreign key relationship, or how the foreign key relationship should be toggled and those constraints should be used. I mean, this probably took like 8 hours to build. I probably could have built a lot more cool stuff in Blueprint than just this one tiny thing that I just don't feel like that many people use, including myself. So again, thank you to the community, and I'm glad that this is going to be supported, but the amount of time I'm spending on it kind of just annoys me because I just don't think it's worth it. Again, just the reason I don't think it's worth it is not because I don't think foreign key constraints aren't worth it. I just think that Blueprint's all about speed, and I think the community is going to need to learn a little bit what the trade-offs are, right? A lot of developers like look for a tool to do like 100%. You know, Taylor talks about this a lot in his Laravel snippet. Like their pain tolerance, ironically in this case, is actually really, really low, right? Like they have high expectations and low pain tolerance. So it's a little bit opposite of what Taylor's saying, but same vein in the fact that because this tool doesn't do, you know, everything that they want, they're kind of like, oh, it's broken. The beauty of Blueprint is that it's speed, right? If you're having to define in every meticulous detail all these foreign key constraints and all the different variations of them, you're kind of missing the point, right? Blueprint's really just supposed to be able to say, this ID done, right? And it does, as we saw, as much as possible. And to that point, if you're following conventions, you wouldn't even have to do this anyways. So again, it's just a very nuanced piece of Blueprint that I really don't want to encourage, is the point. I don't want to encourage these very meticulous, very low level pieces of syntax that only do a small amount of things for a small amount of use cases. That's the issue. Okay, so nothing wrong with foreign key constraints, just want to clarify that. More the fact that I feel like it's going against Blueprint's core principles of being about speed, about developer convenience, and then getting out of your way so you can go write the custom code yourself. So with all that said, I don't want to generate the wrong stuff. So I'm willing to fix this. But moving forward, I'm going to be much more meticulous, much more, not meticulous, much more critical of, you know, supporting these types of kind of rabbit hole features. So hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. For now, let's just do a print R on column because we know we should be adding this foreign key constraint here. So I just want to demonstrate, I know what's in column, but I want to demonstrate to you all what's in column. So let's borrow this, just lock it down to the generator, and we probably are going to get a decent amount of noise here. But what I'm looking for, or well, you know what, better yet, let's filter this. Let's filter this by our migration. There we go. So let's say filter equals boom. All right, cool. So if we take a look at this, we see that the attributes on the column is equal to user. Now, I'm already doing some stuff here on isForeignKey to kind of mess around with the modifiers to see if it's foreign. So I kind of, basically, long story short is I know I need to do something very, very similar to this, right? This is a situation where you've enabled foreign keys at the configuration level, not necessarily in your definition level. And because I'm not saying foreign here, I need to infer this off the ID itself. So what I want to do is I kind of want to leave all that alone, but I want to change build foreign key to basically take the column and then the foreign modifier. Because look at this, I'm already passing in column data type, I'm already passing in column name. It's going to seem a little bit silly now to suddenly pass in column attributes. Column attributes. When you start to do something like this, you kind of have a long long set of parameters, long method parameters. This is a smell. This is talked about in Martin Fowler's refactoring. And the refactor to do here is basically to preserve kind of the whole object as the parameter, pass the whole object in. So let's change this. Let's do this quick refactor. First, so we no longer going to do all that. We're basically just going to build, when we build the foreign key, we're going to pass in the column, and then we're going to pass in the foreign modifier if it's even being used. And in fact, ironically, we don't even need to pass that in really, because we're kind of already doing all that anyway. So in doing this, we can actually just say pass in just the foreign key and then do this work elsewhere. But I think I use this more than just here. No, I don't. So you could actually just do it all. I'll just do it all down there. Okay, well, let's just make a full freaking refactor then. Here we go. So let's just pass in whole column. And let's go check it out. And we're going to pass in the whole column. And just for giggles, I'm surprised column's not there. So let's just say blueprint, blueprint models column. And here we are going to say, that's no longer column name. So let's change all of these to so many. Column name. And let's change type. Just there, good. Column data type is ID, or what did we call that data type? Is it just type? What is it? What are you? I already forgot. Yeah, it's data type. Why is it not liking that? Method data type not found in string. I think it's because this is just being weird. Okay, so on is column is foreign key. And is foreign key... I kind of don't like how is foreign key returns that. I don't know if I built that. I think I built that. That's kind of jacked up. Method data type not found on... Oh. I call column column. What is this really returning? This is really returning the statement. Ooh, I made this kind of gross now. Crap. Column is, well, column is column. I overwrote column so much, now I'm confused. So what is this really? This is the foreign column is what I'm kind of saying that is. And then we've got table. So we've got table and then foreign column. So this should really be column name is really what we're after here. So let's just hand pick these. So column name, unsuccessful refactor, folks. This is column name, column name, column name. Okay. And then one more spot I have build foreign key, which is going to be the wrong way. Okay, so this, what does this do? Migration generator, build pivot table. Ah, that makes sense. That sucks. I see now why, so I kind of jumped the gun there. I see now why build foreign key can't just take a column, because we don't really know what that column is. We don't really know what that column is right here. And we kind of infer it all. Okay, so this is a little hackish, but I'm gonna do it to get it done. Let's call this column. And again, not super pretty, but I'm gonna do column equals new column, because why not? And let's bring it in to the fold here. And it's gonna take a name, which is just column, and it's gonna take a data type, whoops. Yeah, a data type in this case, which is just ID, and it has no other attributes. Okay, why doesn't it like this? Oh, I'm even saying the foreign reference of on. Plural column. This should all just be no, yes, no. This is weird. Foreign is the singular column references. Yeah, see, it's kind of weird here. I'm gonna have to pass in like a foreign modifier, which is weird. This is all going south real quick. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. Let's not refactor that just yet. Let's just pop this off the stack. All right, and let's make sure that we're back to where we want to be. Just one error. And let's make sure that we just have that one error. Okay, cool. All right, we're back to where we want to be. Sorry about that. I went down a refactor hole way too early. I think since it's used in multiple places, that's something I can work on later. For now, let's make this simple change. The simple change is this. I tried to do the refactor, and that in once, it happens to me even every now and then, it was not the right move. You should always test and get it kind of done first. All right, let's do attributes equals this. This is an array of attributes. It's not a required parameter. Everything should be fine. So now we need to kind of analyze, and this is where it gets a little bit dense. Okay, so under these scenarios, it's not necessary that isNull is going to be empty per se. It's kind of like we need to override the table and column. we need to potentially override the table when there is an attribute on ID. Yes, that's exactly what needs to happen. Okay, so basically we need to say if type, we need to tweak this. We need to say if the type is ID and the, and not empty on attributes, then we basically take the lowercase plural form of that, right? So we would say, so we would say table equals, where are we? Yes. If column is ID, yeah, so the table is going to be different. In this case, the table is going to be, what did we say? Way back, we got to scroll up here. Where are you? It's up a little higher. Yeah, user. 0 and user. Okay. So basically, table is the str lower of the str plural. I don't even know if we need to do the lower, to be fair, of attributes 0. I don't think you can specify multiple attributes anyway. Again, this might be limited and leading to more bugs, but let's just see what happens. We're green. Cool. That means it matched. So good. That's what we wanted. The only other thing, I don't know if I want to support this right now, but let me just talk it out for a second, and then we're gonna stop the stream here. So thanks everybody for bearing with me on that little extra part. The only other thing is, let's just say that somehow you had like, I don't know, maybe you called this really something strange, like AID, something very, very unconventional. What about something like that, where you're saying, it's the ID column on the other thing, like, because right now, let's just run this. We should get a bunch of errors, but this is where I think actually there's another issue here, that it just kind of doesn't handle that gracefully. Let me just try to find the migration though. Yeah. Yeah, so see, it would be nice if this actually said AID and then users and then AID, and we actually could. I think let's just go ahead. I think it's pretty easy to fix that, so let's just maybe go ahead and do that just for giggles, even though I'm not gonna write a test for it. I kind of want that to be potentially undocumented. So let's just say, let's just call this a reference is that, and we'll basically say kind of what we did up here. What's interesting is we can make this on, there is actually a boundary case. Let's do this. This is what I want to do. I think this will solve both problems. If on, so if is null on, and the type's ID, and the attributes aren't empty, then on becomes the attribute. We already have all the proper code to handle a foreign key reference that's got a dot in it, that doesn't have a dot in it, that's, that's whatever, right? And we fall through effectively to say, hey, look, if on's already null, which we would know that it would be if we never got in here, right? Otherwise, it's going to check that it's that. Otherwise, it's going to, use plural and everything else. So let's see. This won't fix everything, but I'm curious if how close it gets that migration. So it actually didn't get the dot like I wanted it to. And I wonder if that's because I just never expect tables. Column is considered ID there. Oh yeah, you wouldn't have to constrain it because it's, so really what we'd be after is something more like this. This is more of what we're after. Let's see what this does. Again, very tricky stuff, but yeah. Now the test fails, but this is actually what it does output, and that's actually correct in our case. It should say Whoops, that was not cool. It should say, well, it should say users, actually, is what it should say. And that's because the on thing is a bit different. Yeah. Snake case the table name. Shouldn't it plural snake case? Yeah, that's not really gonna work the way we want. Plus it's not well tested. Let's pull it off. I'd rather it generate a bug. Let's go back and just do what we had. Ah. All right, we're back to where we were. Oh, and we got to put this back, of course. I think this is a fair boundary case. Yeah, there we go. We're all passing now. Okay, let's stop there. I think the wheels are starting to fall off on an hour and a half straight coding session. So I'm breaking some of my own habits. So let's stop there. It's a good time to walk away and have a break, get a snack. Okay, so let's review everything. Put this PR up, and that's 2 of the bugs. And then again, honestly, I think the other 2 are not real anyway. So I'll check. I'll check on those myself. Okay, so we just tacked on the additional attributes in this case. So we know in the other case, when we're building a pivot table foreign key constraint, you would never have that weird syntax because you don't even control it. Pivot table generation is automatic by blueprint, so you can't even mess with attributes anyways there. We're supporting as we saw, the very limited case, although it should, again, cover most cases, but we see how nuanced this foreign key constraint is and how many variations you can have, which is why this doesn't even cover all of them. So I really don't like this feature, to be honest, because there's just so much code around this compared to other stuff. So anyways, if the type is ID and you've specified an attribute, meaning an attribute of a data type, so ID colon user in this case, belongs on the user model or references the user model. Then we pull off that reference, which this is actually unnecessary, so I didn't control backspace. This is exactly why I like get add -p or a visual difference because it lets me see what's going on. So I'm going to say no there. We added our test. Ooh, you know what we forgot? Also, we forgot a test for Laravel 6. So I want to write that test real fast. But let's go ahead and make sure we get the proper type. Okay, everything's committed. Let's go write that one last test, and then I'm going to call it done. Let's open migration. Where are you? Migration generator test. And let's turn this into Laravel 6. And I think I just say like for Laravel 6 or something. Yeah, Laravel 6. And let's swap that out. So we'll say Laravel 6. We'll set the config on. We'll go ahead and mock getting the version to be 6.0. Everything else is the same. We output the same migration. We pull in the same constraint, the same definition, but this time we're going to say constraints. And I think I say dash Laravel 6 is the convention. Yes, it is. So let's just say dash Laravel 6. And let's go copy those relationship constraints, dash Laravel 6. And I'm just going to run this so we can see the failure. And for Laravel 6, of course, we don't have those cool, seamless creation bits there. So we're going to have to actually write the full old school foreign key constraint. This is actually absolutely correct. So I'm just going to copy and paste it from here. So I kind of just a quick trick with tests, but you definitely want to be meticulous if you're going to copy and paste the result of a test. But again, let's just verify it together. It's an unsigned big integer for a foreign key, just like big increments is a big unsigned integer underneath. We use the foreign reference in this case. Post ID references ID on the post table on delete cascade. Big integer author ID. It's a foreign author ID index, which references the ID field, which is true, but on the users table, good job. And then, of course, the on delete. So again, I'm comfortable with this code. Let's take it and let's paste it and let's run it. And we are green. Get add -p, yes to that addition. GST or get status. It's my only, or one of my only get aliases, entire get command aliases. And then git add dot on those fixtures because we know they're good. I don't need to review them. The tests review them for us. So git commit dash m um, infer foreign uh, reference, table reference, just be specific here. Infer foreign table reference from ID attribute. That's very technical, but it's what's happening. Git push origin head, and there we have it. All right, peeps. Let's see here. I'm gonna review the comments. If you have some comments, let me know. But basically, I'm just gonna go out to the real world here, and let's go ahead and just draft up that. But feel free to send off any final comments. I'll check everything. I heard a few come across a few minutes ago, but I was knee-deep in refactor land, so I left it alone. When using foreign key constraints, this will support the shorthand of inferring the, how do you spell inferring? Oh, not with 3 R's, how about that? Inferring the foreign table reference from the ID attribute. For example, or well, that can all just be one line. For example, author ID user. There you go. And it closes 156. All right, so 2 bugs down. Good job. We'll let those run through. And again, I don't think that these other ones, I don't think that this is legit, except, you know, let's just look at these real quick while I'm letting comments come across. We did see this just a second ago when you had a very, very oddly named, reference. I asked this person to send across their draft file. My guess is, though, based on how we just saw this very odd thing, my guess is they're being like really, really explicit. And in their draft file, they're saying something, let's just bring it up here. I bet you they're saying something here like this when they just don't need to. Now again, I should probably support that oddity or just ignore it or something. But technically speaking, that's invalid syntax. So I'm probably just going to close that issue, close that bug, because I just don't think it's a real bug. So I'll just comment that I think that's what they're doing, and if not, to send me their draft file, and we'll get that fixed up. And then if we look at this one, I actually opened this one a long time ago. It errors when previous models were created. After running, it still stores the previously built file. So this is a what? What is what? When did I write this? Did I say what to myself? I don't know what I'm doing there. That seems like my account got hacked or something. That's strange. Anyway, I'll take a quick look at this. I do think this was resolved. I have no idea why I put what there, but maybe it was just kind of like, is that still built or whatever? Who knows? Anyway, let's check the comments. Thank you all for watching live. Let's see what we have here. Do we have the ability to determine our on delete on generated foreign keys? Sometimes I prefer set null instead of cascade. Consistency is everything, especially with the framework. Lynn, no, you don't. And again, this is why I really hate that I went down the road of supporting foreign keys to the level at which I did, because they're never ending. To do something like that, the syntax would really just be, I mean, let's just play that out for a second. You would basically say author ID that, foreign users, you know, delete set null, or this could be an example syntax. So again, I'm not against it, but this just continues to go back to that point of how much you're typing here. If you care about foreign key constraints, my recommendation would be, just like we saw, turn on that configuration to true, just try to write conventional, Laravel stuff, and then fill in the blank in the migration yourself. It's honestly, it's going to be faster. It's keystroke development wise, it's just faster. So maybe someday, if you want to try to PR that, you can. But I'm telling you that, as you can see, it's a rabbit hole. Maybe when I get that code refactored, it won't be so nasty. But this thing was kind of built in a pinch, and it was very hard to support all of the things it already supports. It's just never ending. So you're welcome to try syntax like this. So again, I don't mean to be negative or discourage you, but it's just so many options, so many options. Restore column name. Can't you use string of? Yes, Adrian. All sorts of refactors that could be in here. But yeah, actually, Krishan, good point. String of would actually make me no longer be able to support Laravel 6 for those users. So yeah, we'll just leave it alone for now. Nice session. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Lynn, you get it. Yeah, I mean it's just as easy to modify that in the generated stuff. It'd be a very quick search and replace to know, cascade on delete should be set null or whatever. So yeah, much faster to just write blueprint, leave it alone, let it generate code for the least amount of definition, typing, and then a very quick search and replace after the fact. And maybe I can even make it a configuration option, and then I know, and then you don't even have to type it. Because my guess is, again, that the common use case, and that's why I'm kind of deferring this, is because I like to build kind of the tiny thing, let it out there, even if I know there's a couple bugs, because it lets me know, it lets me see how people are using it a bit more. It doesn't mean I like to write buggy code. It just means I don't know how people are going to use it. So my guess is most people, if they end up toggling on foreign key constraints in their config, then I should probably just add a delete foreign key, or like on delete option where you can say, delete null, or cascade option, or whatever like that. And then it would generate the code you want. So again, if you want to PR that, the configuration option I feel would probably be best. I don't know if I want to support syntax for it, to be honest. I think I'd rather just make it a config option, because the people who care that much about foreign keys probably are toggling the other option anyway. Otherwise, they're having to write foreign for every freaking ID they generate, which is, again, goes against the core philosophy. So, okay, with that, I'm gonna get off my high horse on developer efficiency. Thanks again, everybody, for bearing with me on that hour and a half saga, where I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but such is the common developer curse. So anyway, oh yeah, gosh, sorry. You're right. You're right. You know what? You did bring that up, and you brought this up. Let's get this merged. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit more. If anybody wants to drop off, I totally understand. Thanks again. But yeah, I did promise. Lynn actually reached out. He had worked on this PR before, and he'd actually reached out through these comments, and I basically had kind of promised I would go over this in the live stream. So let's do it. Let's finish this up. So this is just a start command that basically allows you to just run blueprint start. It just is going to create a draft file for you with some sample syntax, and it's going to run the trace command, assuming that you're in an existing application. If you're not, it's not the end of the world. It should just run anyways. This is all pretty good. There were just a couple things here that I wanted to tweak. So let's get this PR finished up and merged, because like I said, that's kind of what I said I would do. So let's do it. Okay, so let's check out let's check out his branch. So let's go back. I don't even think I need to go back to master. Oh wait, no, I did change some stuff. Git reset dash dash hard. That was just me goofing around to demonstrate the on delete. Okay, so we should have, what's wrong there? Oh, all of our changes to master, of course. Yeah, it's going to get merged. That's fine. Okay, so a couple things that I wasn't 100% on here. So first of all, let's just make sure everything does run with our latest merge. So we do have some risky tests, which are weird. Um, I think that was something we talked about where or test bench wasn't honoring whoops, test bench wasn't honoring the fact that you had made some stubs. Where is it? Why are you not working, PHP Storm? This is a start command test. Okay, so file system should receive exists artisan call. So this is just a quick way to mock out the yeah, I see what's going on here. What's interesting to me is Orchestra's test case doesn't mocks application services. Okay, well, I know what the issue is. We can figure out why Orchestral Test Bench doesn't do the right thing. Um, you can't just close Mockery. There's actually more that needs to happen, and I'm very surprised that um, Orchestral doesn't do the right stuff here. But this is like Mockery PHP unit integration. I think if we simply add this, those risky tests are going to go away. Um, let's find out. Yes, they do. Perfect. Okay, so let me just talk about that real quick. Again, this handles the close mockery, but it's not just about that. It's also about assertion counts. By default, these types of assertions are actually a little bit different than what you have in like your standard PHP unit assertions. They get tallied at the end. So mockery close is part of the battle. The next part of the battle is to actually have it bump the assertion counts, because otherwise there are no assertions that happen. There's only expectations on the mocks. And since it doesn't bump internally PHP units assertion count, it's considered a risky test, meaning it performed no assertions. So that's the full backstory on why that happened, just formatting the code other than that. And then the final thing that I think two more things that I wasn't entirely cool on here. Um, I feel like some of these tests are a bit incomplete, but I'm going to leave that alone for now because this is a pretty lightweight thing, and I'm not super concerned with the way in which that's tested. What I am concerned with is two more things. Whoops, let's add an at covers here for the blueprint commands, I think. Is it blueprint? Did I call it capital B? I did, didn't I? Start, what is that called? Start command. It is blueprint. Why the fuck is it thinking it's capital? Anyway, let's do a little start or commands. Start command. All right, that allows me to control click through. Yeah, we don't need that, to be honest. That was a tiny thing. And then, so really, if the file doesn't exist, we make the draft file. We create, created example draft.yaml file in project root. We can just drop that. I think it's going to be obvious where the file is. Let's inline this. I'm just doing a little kind of Boy Scouting here, or cleanup, base coding, if you will. And then finally, we're going to call blueprint trace. Okay, so if the YAML file doesn't exist, we're going to make a YAML file off the draft stub, and that's the last thing I wanted to do. Was the draft stub, I think was not, we talked about this, but I think it was a little confusing. I just want something like that, where you basically define your models, define your controllers kind of thing. Not necessarily the kind of README example. Okay, let's make sure everything still passes. And it does. So just to reiterate, and again, I'm not going to spend time fixing this because I think this is kind of a good enough scenario. What's interesting is that the should receive kind of, I prefer expect better because basically expect is a shorthand for once. Um, so I just want to make sure that this actually gets called with once. Should receive is actually not strong enough. It just means that it might receive. It doesn't mean that it will receive or does receive. It's kind of just like, hey, file system could receive this, and when it does, return false or return the draft YAML. And that's not exactly what we want. So if we throw the once on there, it basically acts like expects, which is nice. So let's just go ahead and fix those, just so the test is a little tighter, and we can say and return true just for a little shorthand there, just since we're here. And it should not receive put. That's fine. And then we actually call it. And then artisan should receive call with blueprint trace, but we actually haven't called artisan here. So this is where it gets interesting. And I'm just going to demo this. I'm not going to fix it. We definitely get exceptions there. And it's basically because you can't test artisan when you mock artisan. It's not going to work out that way. So this actually isn't testing anything, but it does demonstrate the whole should receive bit. So let me just put that back. Whoops, where'd we go? That was actually a different test. Method exists from mockery should be called exactly 1 times called 0 times. It does not create draft file if 1 already exists. Where is that? Which test is it failing on? If 1 already exists, it creates a draft file from stub if none exists. File system should be called exist. What's wrong with you? Yeah, see, this is actually not, it's not getting called the way we think. That's strange. I see why you were running into some errors now. Start command test, or whoops, start command is what we want. We are using file system exists, and we should be mocking it. Should be. That's kind of the interesting piece there. Let's find out. Let's just do a var dump on this files. This should be a mock. See, it's an actual file system. It's an actual file system. That shouldn't be. All right, get facade accessor if it's not a static. Oh. It returns a should. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That it should actually mock it. That should actually mock it. Strange. Yeah, it seems like it's not. I don't really use these that often, to be honest. I am wondering. This should happen for you underneath the covers, but let's just do this. I think you don't. Or well, no. Maybe we just have the wrong file system. Yeah, see, we're swapping the file system facade, but we're actually using Illuminate's file system here. See, if we were using the file system directly here, just for giggles, let me demonstrate that, because I think you're on the right track. We're just not using the facade directly. So let's just change this to that, and whoops, file system. So let's use the facade, and let me kind of just hack this up to demonstrate this real fast. Let me bring in the actual facade. There it is. There we go. And now run it. See how it's still saying illuminate file system because I got the wrong one now, but Notice that all the tests pass. Um, so you actually were on the right track if we were using a facade, and within a normal Laravel application, we probably would be using a facade to be fair. So that's why these work. Um, but we're actually not using the facade directly because it's a package. It's actually getting injected the file system, which is one and the same thing through the container. But because of that's the magic piece that I think you were missing. That was running into an issue here. So because of that, we actually need to swap this out in the container. So we actually need to say file system equals this swap, and the abstract is going to be this. And then now we can say, and I'll just do this for one test so we can demonstrate that it should only fail once now. So we get 2 failures. It creates a draft file from stub if none exists. So what's it missing now? On line 22, and exactly 2 expected. Too few arguments to function, or oh. Can we not swap it with the container? Oh, it's mock. I'm sorry. It's mock. You don't need to pass in a mock for an abstract. There we go. Okay. Draft file if none exists. Okay. File system should be, and now I think we still have file system over here, don't we? No, we don't. What's wrong with you? Var dump files. Okay, so we're mocking Illuminate's file system. File system should be called. It's still getting an actual file system, which is, it's a little odd to me. It creates a draft file if from stub if none exists. All right, I'll shout out to a friend here. What are we missing? We're still missing that. This should work. Something a little strange is happening here. It's a tiny little thing I'm missing, but it's annoying. Should be called exactly once, but called 0 times. Okay. We get the file system injected there. The only thing I can think is that this artisan call is actually being a little weird. Let's try something else here. I think in a test you really want to say this and not use the facade. I'm thinking it's a chaining thing, but I could be wrong. The fact that I'm still getting an Illuminate file system there really kind of makes me think something's wrong here. If you don't pass in a mock, it makes a mock. Closure mock. Where's this used? Oh, it passes in the mock. Why is Illuminate file system? That's the abstract. That's the abstract. Yeah, it's one of those things. I just need to like take a break for a minute, and I'm sure this would be really, really obvious. I'm gonna spend like 2 more minutes on this, and we'll see. Let me just try this a different way. Maybe there's some hook I'm missing about that. I'm gonna swap this with my own file system mock, and let's just go back to like mockery mock. I don't think I test. I don't think I test the other stuff, but let's find out. Oops. Helps when you write proper PHP syntax. Yeah, see, even then it's still getting the other one. So it's definitely something with the linkage. For whatever reason, this file system that comes across is not, um, it is not what we expect it to be. Yeah, it's getting a straight up Illuminate file system, which it really should not be. It should just be a plain old like R crappy mock. So something's off here. There's some kind of step. It must be something with test bench. Maybe there's a different way or a different piece I'm missing where we have to stub that out, because I feel like in Laravel this should be totally fine to swap the file system that way and have the container properly resolve it once it's created. My only other guess, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is I wonder if this package provider is what's causing the issue. Because, yeah, I bet you that's what it is. Because this is firing early. Yeah, let me prove this, and then we're gonna quit. Watch this. Dump here, here, and then um, constructor, and then dump handle, and let me just dump. Let me dump execution here, or dump act. Okay, so my expectation is that we're going to see the constructor. We're going to see here constructor act and then, or sorry, here constructor act and then handle. And what that proves to me is that because of test bench and having to actually load the provider's loading and newing up newing up the controller, or sorry, newing up the command, which pulls the file system out of um, pulls the file system out of the container before we have a chance to mock it in our act or in our arrange. So I bet you that's the issue. No, it's actually not. Here, act, and then constructor. So that's actually the arrangement I would have expected. It is loading up, but it's not actually calling the constructor until we act. So something's wrong with the linkage in my test, and I don't know what it is right now. So I'm gonna take a break and come back to it, and I'll comment on the PR what the actual solution was, because the facade, using the facade is definitely part of the battle, but there's some dance I'm missing here that I'm not seeing right now. And I think I'm just too close to the code and tried to rush squeezing this in. So let's cut it off there. It's definitely been a 2 hour 2 hour live programming session. So yeah, my brain's fried, and I'm sure I'm missing some very simple, stupid thing here. So I'll post on the PR whatever it is. You'll see it in the final code once I push this commit up. So again, thanks everybody for bearing with me there. Sorry again, the wheels fell off towards the end, but sometimes it's good to see when people struggle, because working through the struggle is definitely kind of helps us all gain that experience, right? So again, I'll post back the exact issue in the pull request. Just for reference, that's pull request number 184. If you all want to come back to that, I'll comment in the YouTube comments as well what it is. So we'll figure that out later. But yeah, definitely a two-part issue. So the first part was we were using the facade when it's really using the underlying file system resolved from the container. So that's half the battle. But some way in which I'm setting it up in the container to be a mock is not it's not doing the right thing. So we'll figure that out. Thanks again, everybody, and I will see what happens later. All right, bye bye.